I'm like, oh, I'll walk in.
Mhm.
Yeah, like that. Of course.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I'm gonna call the region board meeting to order. Please silence all cell phones during the meeting. I look for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item 3, public appearances of citizens' comments on items not listed on this agenda. Items will not be debated or acted upon at this meeting, but will be referred to the proper, staff or committee if action is required, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes. I'm sure you're all here about the operator's license, so you can speak when we get down to that item on the agenda. So, item 4, approval of the consent agenda.
Let me go ahead and read that.
Second.
Give me a motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item 5, new business, consideration, discussion, operator's license fee. I see Amber's the only one that wants to speak. Are you speaking for the whole group?
I don't think I'm the only one that wants to speak. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amber. My only thing, we have a lot to say probably. But when I was first notified, this was probably October-ish timeframe. I was told an analysis was done of local, I'm not even sure where, of the operator's fees, and doing my own research. The operator fees for all the around areas, Rona is $60 for 2 years, Monticello is 35. Bella is 30, Evansville 25, Mount Barbara is 50, and Madison only 45 for 2 years. So that would be what my concern is why the big jump from $35 to $100. I know that I currently pay for all my bartenders' licenses. And that is going to become something that's probably going to have to change. And now I'm going to have to ask my staff, like potential new staff, to pay half of that. But that's a lot for them as new staff to do. The other concern is if they get denied, it's $100 we're out. $115 if we ask for provisional, that we're out of pocket. And I don't know if Scott's going to speak or not, but I think you just said you had 4 or 5 tonight.
I think there's been 3 or 4 since we opened that have been denied, and that money's just out the window.
It just becomes more of a financial burden on us. I know I try to hire really good bartenders and good staff. And we are not allowed to CCAP and deny them based upon CCAP. It's illegal to do so. So we're not really ever. We're not gonna know ahead of time whether or not they're gonna be denied or not. So that's my sense on it.
Then your licensure for the bar went from 250 to 5.
I believe for the liquor.
500.
I understand change needs to happen sometimes, but that's a really huge increase. I mean, you're looking at like this year's renewal, I only have, I think right now, probably gonna renew. It also makes it a staffing issue because I like to license all my bartenders. I like to know that they've been through the class, they know what they're doing, and that they're gonna abide by the laws. But now if I have to make that decision on whether or not I license all my bartenders, or I just say, you know what, I'm only gonna have 1 license on at any given time, and the rest don't get licensed. And they maybe don't take the class because they won't need to.
I might as well summarize what I had about 4, I think, owners approached me about the issue, which I was not really involved in or aware of. And 2 of them were from the wine walk, and they are licensures, and they're not going to be in the wine walk because of the cost of the licensure. So then I had talked to Chuck Bigler a number of times, and so there was some concern that, we take a look at this. The other comment that was made was that staff recommendation was $50 originally, and then I know they said they couldn't understand the tape very well, but, I think it was Chuck that said he couldn't understand the tape very well, so I went back and looked at it. And it just, and again, it's no one's fault, it automatically went from 50 where we decided it was going to be 100. So my concern is that to let the constituency speak and see where we go from here. So,
Does it, Scott?
If I may add, as far as seasonal employment, we do have, staff, a large influx of staff because of the summertime, tourism that we bring in. I don't know how many you have extra, but
I just had 2 new ones.
yeah, I plan on bringing in 8 to 12 new staff. That takes, even if I take in 10 staff where it was 350, that was $1,000 in fees plus our renewal license. Even if the staff takes half of that, it's still a large burden on not only staff because their first paycheck is out the window because they have to pay the $50, the half that I won't sponsor. But again, what do we do after, something's denied or, down the road, they only get this license for the 6 months that they're working. They can go elsewhere, sure, but it's October, none of the other bars in town are looking for staff either because we've all settled into our full-time staff.
And I could speak on it as well. I work for Cleveland's Bar and Grill, and I am the manager. I could speak in the sense that a lot of our employees, the owner has started considering, are they really beneficial to have their own license since they generally work with someone who is already licensed, which is perfectly legal. So he has started to dwindle on staff on how many he is going to renew. And that puts us in a hard spot of, if I have a employee that can cover a shift, or it's a solo shift, they're the only one working, and all of a sudden they're not licensed because it's a little bit too much for the license. Now we're just gonna close down the bar, and the town in and of itself is gonna start to lose revenue.
thank you.
Well, I can speak a little bit to the village side, the research. So the clerk's office put together a fee schedule comparison. This was brought at the September 5th meeting. So I know Amber said you got notified in October. It truly got approved in September. So we tried to let everybody know as soon as we could. I did a comparison of, I actually reached out to a number of municipalities and only heard back from a few of them. I did Monticello, who at the time was only $20. Monroe is $50 a year. And then Cross Plains was $50 for 1 year or $90 for 2. And then my proposal on this proposed fee schedule, which was posted on our website for the board meeting, was $50. I thought that was a fair middle ground. So in terms of how it got to 100, the video's posted. I mean, the board discussed it. I explained why I thought it should be 50. The board decided on 100, and that it was a unanimous vote, and everybody was there. And at the end of the day, I think the one thing I want to make sure to stress too is, although the clerk's office is the one that works every day with our business owners, we don't make these decisions. And we also are the ones putting in all of the behind the scenes work to make this process work, along with Jeff and the PD, and he can comment on his time on this too. But in terms of how much time these take, and I know you guys talk about the denials too, and Jeff, feel free to come in on the denials, but the process, the paperwork, the time, the application process, because it goes to so many people, cost staff money too. So in regards to seeing an increase of the fee, I mean, we were losing money doing these, so that's where the $50 for me.
I don't think any of us are arguing about.
No. No, yeah, and I know that. I just want to make it very clear that that's where the $50 came from. And as far as how we got to the $100, that's, the board decided on that, like all of our other fees. Yeah, that's
I mean, the only thing I will say is that Monroe has 37 liquor licenses. That's and it's a population a lot bigger than New Glarus that you're comparing that.
Yeah, I wanted,
Plains has what, no bars now anymore?
Just got rid of the last bar.
Yeah, Cross Plains doesn't have any bars anymore. So I guess when I look at the comparisons, I would have looked at more of the area
Yep.
that we're in right here in Green County, more so than anywhere.
and I did reach out to Belleville and Mount Horeb as well. And I didn't hear at the time when I reached out on this, which was way before this went to the board, I start budgeting in May.
Yeah.
So this went in September. So, you know, we tried to get a fair comparison of a small municipality in terms of like Monticello, all the way up to like what would our biggest competitor be in terms of festivals? And I chose Monroe for that. And I'm not saying that we are the size of Monroe, but
Yeah.
that's why I did the comparison, and that's how I landed on $50 every 2 years. Our office's biggest concern was keeping it a 2-year process and not a 1 year, because we truly don't have the staff to do it every year with everybody. I did pull some numbers, and we have, and obviously this would, not everybody renews, but we also get new people every year. We have about 70 renewals this year. So the consequence, good or bad, of the decision is that we based our budgeted numbers off of what the board chose to set this fee at. So if we would revert on this, I mean, that creates somewhat of a deficit in our budget. And I think that's important for the board to understand, to have that information. And that's why, you know, when we're going through these fee schedules and determining these fees, I mean, there's impact to the community, to what we do here every day.
I think I should have a question. Yeah. Why leave it at 2 years for $100? Why not push it to the 3-year marker and have a renew every 3 years?
2 year, we've always done the 2 year, and I thought it was more so because of if something would happen to an I mean, if somebody would do something illegal, the 2 years is a good marker that we're not having to do it every single year. We're not expanding. I mean, 3 years is somewhat of a long time if somebody would choose to do something legal. But that's once again a board decision. The board could set it every year if they wanted to, or every 5 years. Yeah. No, there's no state statute that I know of. Totally a board.
I think also I can speak for myself, and I think all the other boroughs in town were kind of surprised that we weren't even notified to have a chance to talk to you guys about it. And yeah, I know you guys post your agendas, but then you're assuming that we all have time to look at your agenda every single month to go, oh, shoot, they're gonna talk about changing operators like fees. Because I think had that happened, we all would have been here then. Like it kind of came, like some of the bar owners didn't know about it until they got renewal notice. And I knew about it back whenever I had RV Park. So I think that's probably more of it, is like, we are a small community, and I feel like it was kind of a big shock to most bar owners, because they're like, oh my gosh, all these fees changed and they jumped. I mean, you're talking $35 to $100, a significant increase in a year. So.
How many bar establishments do we have that would be paying that $100?
Everyone. You have to have licensed operators.
So how many, yeah, so how many?
We have 70 renewals this year.
Yeah, 70 people would be up for renewal this year.
Okay, so it would be
And it usually evens out around that
about
number.
$3,500 we would be looking at.
No, we're looking at, that's like $7,000
$7,000.
if we had 70 people renew at $100.
Okay,
Touch, for Festos, I know a lot of my staff doesn't come back just because we're seasonal and they get about 3 days a week if they do work full time with me. So every year we're bringing in at least 12 days.
I'm trying to do the math on it in my head. So we have 70 looking for licensures.
Well, we have 70 people that expire this year. Whether or not they renew, that's,
You have no idea.
but
No.
usually in the past, from the statistics that we have, it usually ends up being around that number of up for renewal, because we have new people that take
So
up
if it
licenses.
would be at 50, I mean, if it's $7,000, but if it would be at 50, it would be a $3,500 that the village would have to adjust their
It'd
budget.
be $2,000, because 50 times 100 is 5,000. Or what do you?
She's saying
With the 70, if it'd be $50, it will.
Oh, right,
So we lose
correct,
$3,500
correct,
in
yep.
revenue.
So we lose
Correct,
3,500 that we'd have to absorb somewhere else.
correct. Mhm.
But I also think that's going off of the assumption that every single license renewal will be renewed, and I can tell you that my bar is not going to do that. We already have talked to certain staff where they always work with the licensed bartender, so that will not be a certain requirement. Because at this point, with the fee, the owner is trying to save somewhat of his own money versus if it was a $50 fee. It doesn't matter if that bartender only works with other people, he would still get them a license. Just for the sake of, I can tell you, if it was a $50 fee, the owner would be more than happy to license. I don't think. Every single person right now.
What'd you say, Amber?
I said if it was $50, we wouldn't be here. Right, we would, honestly, we would, none of us would be here.
We know it has to go up every.
Yeah, we understand increases have to happen. I mean, we're in the business where we understand it. Like, you have to increase the save, to cover your own costs and everything. We understand all that,
So if this happens, how many could you see that you would actually license then?
so. Oh, like it's gonna drastically change. I license all my bartenders.
I know.
right now, and I won't. I mean, I will only have my dedicated staff that are gonna become closers and my other bartenders will have to work from.
So,
I would lose 4 licensed bartenders. I mean, in the next 2 years of the renewal process.
so then we would lose revenue anyway.
Exactly, yeah. I have at least 4 that are not gonna get renewed right now.
For me, at Festivus, I have to be there anyway, so I probably just won't renew, because I have my, this only one. I'll be on the property when we're open on the weekends. So none of them will renew.
Yeah. So I don't think it's necessarily gonna earn the village more revenue by increasing the charge. I think more business owners are willing to go with the 50, but the 100 is kind of a huge stretch for these business owners. I mean, that's when you start picking and choosing, well, I know that this person's always gonna be on shift. So as long as we have one licensed person in the establishment, we will be okay.
Right, in terms of the revenue, I think the only thing to point out for that is my job is doing the budget, is I have to take this fee schedule and then develop some kind of budget with it. So the $7,000 number was simply just based on the math of how many renewals we have coming up. We've raised other fees too, where we've had less maybe participation in those, but because the fee was more, it made up that, what we needed to make. But yeah, that, in terms of the actual revenue number, I wouldn't necessarily say that that was looking to make money. It was just based on the number
To
that
pay for
said.
for your time. pretty much.
Well, you had to use the data that was presented from the board to develop the budget, and the data presented was $100 a license, and we had 70 people up for renewal, and usually not everybody renews, but then we have new people too, so we go with the numbers that we have.
Can any of you on the board, I remember the $50, I know I talked to Chuck about this, I remember the $50 fee, and then, we're not perfect people, so. Obviously, we voted for the 100, I don't know how we got to that point, but we did, and you both have recommended the 50. How we got, do any of you recall how we got to the
I think
100?
we had one board member make a motion to make it 100. Instead of 50, let's just make it $100. I think
And that's
almost
how
the
it
quote.
got there, and
Yeah.
that's how it got there, okay.
Well, and also it was discussed about operators buying their own license versus business owners paying for them, and I know you all know this, but I'm just gonna say it to enlighten the board. Business owners are not required to pay for their operator licenses. It is the operator's responsibility to have a license, whether the business owner pays for it or not, that's between them.
But we're required to have the operators.
Correct. I just want to make sure that they all understand as well. But there are businesses in town that do not pay anything for their operators. And the discussion with the $50 that I said was because this was a license that an individual has to pay for. The $50 made sense to me because it's affecting an individual, whereas the liquor licenses are technically affecting a business. And I think the rebuttal to that was that because a lot of the businesses purchase operator licenses for their people, technically the cost wasn't coming from an individual, it was coming from a business. I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I think I watched the tape too, and that's what I heard.
The only other thing I would comment to, when you get the question about denials, maybe make your people pay for them, and if it gets approved, you will pay them back. Because they're obviously not being honest on the applications like the one we have in front of us tonight. And I have to present it to the board and why I denied it. I think if you would have known that and they would have put that on there, you would have said, you're done, I'm not even gonna pay this. So they're not telling you the truth either when they're filling these out.
And I was unaware that, and I didn't even think of it, that if they get denied that they've already paid the $100 and
Yeah.
or 50 or whatever it is, and they don't get it back.
That's why I would make them pay.
Right.
If it gets approved, you'll reimburse them on the check.
Because the problem with that, the reason that we don't give it back is because we've already done, the staff have already done all the work for it.
Have you thought about how would that impact your business if you split the difference, that you put $50 toward it and they have to pay the other 50, but if they're looking for one and they get approved, you give them $50 reimbursement?
I mean, I'll be honest, I think that most people that are claiming to be bartenders need the money.
They'll just go to another account.
And they'll just go somewhere else and work. And I think that interviewing somebody and telling them that they have to be responsible to pay for their own, like, their own class, even to get licensed, and then pay $50 upfront. I'll be honest, I don't know how that's gonna go.
And to add on to that, it's really hard, you know, I had a license in Dane County, I could serve anywhere in Dane County. Versus here, I can only serve in the town of New Glarus. If I go to Monticello, I'm not allowed to. So or more so, outside of county. So if I were serving in Blanchardville, I'd need an Iowa County license, so then it's drawing extra reasons why if I have 2 part-time jobs, I'm trying to make this extra money up. Is it really worth it for me to pay $100 or even just the half and half $50 fee when I don't really know what I'm actually gonna garnish in that?
If I may add, I've had 6 liquor licenses in different municipalities with 8 different businesses. Never once has there been a business that said, you know, here's your responsibility to go pay that liquor license. They assume you paid the dues to take a class, which is maybe $15 or $20, depending where you go online. You know, that was hard to, you know, you've already assumed that cost. And that you can take anywhere. But then the bars are assuming somewhat of a cost as well. And I think most of us have based our decision to provide those liquor licenses to our employees as part of the vetting process.
Yeah, I think that's great that you guys offer that to your employees. I just wanted to make sure the board
Yeah,
understood.
yeah.
Mike or Mike, you got any comments?
Still listening. No, I got to the 100,
What's that?
but yeah, I still don't know really exactly how we got to the 100, but
Well, I'm gonna.
I guess
just make-
that you had said
Well, yeah,
there was
I'm gonna just discuss my point and then I'm gonna raise a motion, only because I was approached by a number of
Yeah.
people from the establishments. I wasn't pursuing that. And we just made that, you know, we don't do everything right. We went to 100. So these are the people that drive New Glarus. We've not had a constituency like that before, and we've had to adjust budgets before, and it is what it is. So I'm gonna make a motion that we move back to $50 and let these people survive in their businesses, and we'll just have to eat that and make the motion. This is New Glarus here, so we cannot, I don't feel in good conscience. I represent these people. The village, I just don't feel in good conscience that we can move forward when we do not know why we raised it to 100. I mean, it's okay. I was speaking with my hat on too tight. I don't know. But we made a mistake. I don't know if it's a mistake. We just didn't think about it. I don't know. But I'm gonna make a motion that we go to 50, because if it's gonna impact these folks that much, that's my motion.
okay. Were you gonna say something before?
Sorry, Mike.
Oh, no, it was, the question in regards to how it got up to 100.
Yeah, I don't-
Somebody brought it up to like, just bring it up to 100, that's a shift for somebody to do. And then it's gonna pay it off essentially. So with that argument that was presented to the board, it
Yeah, I know.
convinced everyone to be like, yeah, okay. In the future, I suspect we should probably talk more towards the businesses in regards to the
Right,
structure of how these things all go out.
I
Because I
agree.
believe we did not have that foreground here for us on the whole process of it. It's like a fee, money, okay,
I
where
agree.
it's a lot more intricate than that.
And when you're raising it at that price, I mean, you should give the people impacted by it some, a voice, something they can say, and we didn't do that. And, we're learning along the way.
I want to add, just so the village board is aware, so obviously this will create a budget deficit as well as significant administrative leap for us, doing a mid-year fee change. We will have several refunds that we'll have to issue, as well as communication with all of the folks that we've already sent out approval or applications to.
I mean, it's
Is
the
there a way?
workload to change this. It's not a simple, okay, now we're gonna charge 100, and I'm not disagreeing with the decision
Right.
to decrease it. But I think this going forward. I mean, I think when we approach these things, I mean, I think the day-to-day process that happens back here is not always known by the board.
Right.
And I think realizing how much
Yeah.
work goes into getting these licenses and everything ready for our businesses. And now changing something almost 4 months in when we've already had people pay the $100. And it's not as simple as giving somebody a $50 bill back. And then it's also not as simple as changing it on one form. And I'm not disagreeing with the decision. I just
Right.
want the board to be aware that the work that load is now that is being put back on to staff here and in the future, the importance of making sure the decisions that we make regarding these fees are decisions that we're willing to stand by or
I
would have
agree.
going forward.
And it's a learning process. And
I think we've learned a valuable lesson here.
we have learned
that
a
we
valuable
have
lesson.
to- When we're gonna increase rates like this on anything,
Right.
when it, to the business community, I think they've got to be notified. Be brought to the table.
Well, my only other follow-up question would have to be, there's been a lot of discussion here in regards to just only having X number of licensed people at our establishment. Even if we change that here now, is that still gonna be the fact? If we change it back to $50, we have a whole bunch of background processes that are going on, and they're like, we kind of ran the numbers anyways, and we just feel like it would be just fine to only have a handful of licensed people here, and that's on the business to make that decision. That is,
The
I think
only
we-
thing I can speak on that
yeah,
regarding, so if I have certain staff that we have relinquished them getting a new license, and then all of a sudden we're short-staffed and we need help for a night and we have no one to work bar. Well, if I don't have anyone that's licensed, we will be forced to shut down. We will lose the town revenue by not being able to be open, by having that happen.
Mhm.
Versus the owner would be more than happy paying the fee for every single employee to have that $50 license fee. Versus the 100, we will probably actually lose hours of business by using.
Yeah, I would say that at $50, I'm probably gonna license all the computers.
It's like a convenience fee. for us,
Yeah,
not-
It's just, I know that they've gone through the class, they know the laws, they know what they're supposed to do. I know that they've passed the background check, that they're not doing anything, they've never done anything that would cause them to not get licensed. And as a bar owner, I feel comfortable knowing that that person has been through this same process and that I can trust them enough to leave them at my establishment, and I don't have to be there. I would license all my bartenders again at $50. At $100, I won't license them.
I can honestly say I've worked in this town for almost 10 years. It's the first year I considered not renewing my license because I wanted $100 and she didn't want to go to that bar, pay $100 for my licensing fee.
I think this is the first time in like 30 years that they've increased this fee.
I understand that, but it's,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, no, I'm
A
just,
lot of
yeah,
times
I think that's
it's
probably the reason, that's probably the,
And
yeah.
she generally is the bartender that doesn't work alone. She usually
Right.
works with a licensed
Right.
bartender. But there are some times where I have a weekday night staff call out on shift. And this was my person to go to.
Right, yeah,
If he doesn't have that license, then I'm gonna be the one sitting at the bar anyway to monitor her. And then what's the point of even having her work? It's just gonna make my owner end up paying a lot.
And one more thing, I know you guys touched on that it would just be like a shift that they worked, and then it was covering the license of $100. I mean, bartenders make like what, minimum wage 5 something?
Yeah, if that is something,
On one shift.
I mean, there's days that I would be getting $20. I work day shifts at Clemens, and I can tell you that my average is probably about $30 to $40 per shift. So. And I'm also paying rent, I'm paying my utilities, I have a lot of other bills to consider. So if that factored into it, then that would probably change my reasoning for wanting to stay in this town as well.
Well,
Well, we got
I
a
will,
motion.
I'll second the motion. And I guess I would make a comment to urge you to consider what the chief said about making your potential, bartenders and licensing, they pay for it up front. It's like passing an exam for, a license, you get reimbursed for it. And just reimburse them once they pass, and it just makes, I think, for better compliance. And if they do have something that you're gonna flag,
I kind of heard from them too, you're using that, oh, it's a $50 convenience fee. Well, now we know they're vetted by the police, like, we're kind of like, when you're hiring for it, like, we're doing
yeah,
the background, so you feel assured that you have some. Right, so. That's where I'm kind of going, so you're using that for us to do it.
no, I think that's a great idea.
Cause we can't, by law, like, if I was to speak at somebody and look at their record, I can do that. But by law, I cannot deny them
Right.
employment based upon that. That can be denied, like, police can deny them based off.
But you can also do your own background. On your employees, you
I
can get
pretty
their
much-
personal records,
I
you can
do
pay a
that.
fee and get all that too.
But then I'm paying a fee on top of the license fee. That, I mean, it's just, I guess from my perspective is that. I feel like all my bartenders, I know them. I've been very careful. I've been burned a few times as well, that I tell my staff, I tell them all the time, you need to put everything on that application. And I don't know if they're not thinking what they're forgetting out or something. I've been burned where I've lost $50. Like, I think one summer I would be $300 or $400 in denial. But I do feel that for the most part, all the bar owners do their best to hire quality people so that they're gonna abide by the laws and they're gonna follow what they can, and they're gonna know what they're doing. And I don't know, I guess I would hate to see it go the other way, because I'm still gonna try to be careful, but they're just not gonna.
So given the change, we can expect that the 70 people we can expect our statistics to stay about the same.
Yeah.
Is that accurate from at least the group here?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, we had a motion and a second.
Do we know offhand how much that was gonna change here then too, by reversing this decision?
$3,500.
$100. And
If we get the same amount of people.
Number of people, right?
Yeah.
that's,
I mean, some of it is looking into a crystal ball and guessing
yeah.
how many people are gonna.
And just bringing this up, I mean, with respect to those refunds, I'm not saying you shouldn't, but they paid the fee under the existing ordinance. And the ordinance changed, and I know it's mid-year, but I'm just playing
They
devil's.
have to refund.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean,
so
it's unfair to the ones that have already paid and now.
no, we're changing. I get it. I get it.
Well, and also like, and it's part of the job, but my office catches the flack for that. I mean, they're not coming to, your office and yelling at you for it, so.
Well, who knows? That'll probably make them happy, and then I'll get more license. Who knows?
so we have that number of trouble.
Right now we have 7 confirmed. We had a bunch coming in from one of the gas stations that was mailed. So I don't know how, I think there's
Okay.
maybe 7 more there, so.
So we'll have to refund about 14 plus.
Yeah. Yeah, it didn't, yeah,
All
About
the additional
$700.
communication we'll have to do. with
yeah,
everyone.
so all the forms will have to be resent, we'll have to re-communicate this with all of our operators and business owners, and then just making sure too, like, some of our business owners don't check their email super often, so just making sure that they see that the fee was changed back to 50, so they don't send in a check for 100, you know,
I
it's
think
just,
we will get several
we
more
will.
$100.
We always do is, yeah, with any changes like this, which
Well,
doesn't happen.
Well,
We
at that
might
point, when you
get
get
more
it from now on, you could just call them and tell them, you know, things have changed and they need to bring a different check in.
Correct, we certainly can,
We
it's
wouldn't
just,
have- we wouldn't have to process.
right, it's just, it'll be an administrative process that we'll have to work through.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, and I think we learned a valuable lesson. I'll reiterate.
We learned.
Got to keep people more involved when we do this. Okay, item B, consideration discussion denial of operator's license for Janice Teasdale, page 23.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're not staying for this one, Scott?
Oh, if it's my licenses, yeah.
No,
You
no.
don't have to.
No, I'll sit in. I'll give you some feedback on that if you need it.
Okay, Jeff, I guess.
I denied this application, to be honest, she was in a car accident in County, that was the only offenses, anything. She was convicted, a few years back for negligent homicide, use of a motor vehicle being intoxicated.
Okay,
And that was the car accident, but just simple,
She just listed.
she just listed a car accident. Okay.
Denied for, application to disclose the complete application and applicant has been convicted of a felony that's substantially related to this activity.
okay.
I didn't feel it would be a good fit for the bill if this just happened a few years ago, but some other stuff happened. Scott didn't even end up hiring.
She made it 2 shifts in before. The list of activities were discovered and we terminated her on site. I think learn from all, right? That's part of hiring too, is somebody can interview great and start great and they end up slipping up or not disclosing information and we all have to eat something.
Okay,
Her application is accurate, so. Well, there's no misstatements on the application itself. But she made, what I'm reading here. She only checked. Yes, under convicted of a felony and everything else, no, that's accurate. Right?
No, she was convicted of all that we lied.
'Cause what?
She was convicted of homicide.
Well, the question was, is any felony, and she says yes.
Yeah, but she said car accident.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so. Not-
That's not what she
not-
did. She
okay,
did
got
a
it.
deer.
Got it.
I was wondering how that was a felony, just a car accident.
She hit Wilson.
I'll go ahead and make a motion to deny the operator license for Janice Teasdale.
Second.
okay, we have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
All right,
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. You can go now, Scott, if you want. Or you can stick around for the rest of it.
Oh,
You want.
And there was one more thing that I can mention.
Okay.
Where she didn't list on there either that she's on condition. She can't be in possession or consumption of alcohol, so.
Oh,
Her agent
Oh,
too,
my.
how can she even work there? If she's
Yeah,
in
yeah.
violation, she'd be in alcohol.
okay.
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 That was- That's the backgrounds I gotta do on all these too, and research.
thank you.
Okay, item C, consideration discussion resolution R 24-05, appointing limited term employee parks and rec laborers. Let's see, it's got 26.
This is pretty straightforward. We did budget for an additional LTE for parks this summer. We decided we wanted to start one of them early because we have a lot of work to do, especially with the ball fields in the spring. Baseball starts up, I think, in April or
It's already started.
has already started. So we'd like to hire Mike Colney. He's super experienced. We're very excited to have him on board.
He will do a great job.
He will.
Yeah.
Good. We're
I'll make
lucky.
sure.
We're lucky.
He'll maybe teach you a few things.
I'll make a motion to approve. The resolution R 2405 appointing the limited term employee parks and director labor.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second, all in favor, say aye.
Thanks.
Aye. Opposed, motion carried.
He'll have you picking flowers, Joe.
Pulling weeds. We'll go down to personnel and finance, consideration, discussion, investment policy. Oh, I'm sorry. Consideration, discussion, 2024 goal updates, page 27.
This will be quick, but I just wanted to provide an updated 2024 goals list. One, to provide updates on the goals, as well as add a couple additional goals that Goff had requested. So you'll notice, so let's see if I can remember which ones were added. I added one on the library, just kind of talking about, you know, the goal of this year to identify and acquire land for the new library project, facilitate planning, which obviously the library board is working on. I have the Candy Cane Park project in here. And then I also included the cemetery as requested by Goff. So the very last initiative, goal 4, I have develop a plan of action for the transfer of ownership of the Swiss Church Cemetery. So I did provide an update on that, which is I'm still kind of in the information gathering stage. I've been getting information from the Swiss Church, obviously still to be determined on where we go from there, but I anticipate a lot of questions popping up, and so that is why I'm kind of collecting a lot of information so that we can kind of come up with a plan of action, whether that's getting the town involved or, you know, establishing another entity or the village. I think there's a lot of options there, but for now, I'll keep you all updated on what I'm doing on that one. And that's really it.
Thank you. Any updates on the grant?
They just, you're talking about the candy cane.
Yeah,
They just put out some guidance on the timeline. And they're not gonna award grants until late summer, early fall, which is not great for our timeline. So
Let's start that sentence again. What?
the Candy Cane Park grant
Candy cane. I'm sorry.
that I applied for, they're not gonna award grants until late summer, early fall. And obviously, we want to construct a playground this summer / maybe early fall at the latest. So we need a game plan, next steps on that. And I'll probably meet with Shelley and talk through some options. It's possible that maybe we could do the playground project this summer and use those grant funds towards like the parking lot portion. That's not what I applied for, so I'm not sure how that will work. So some details to work through on that, but that's where that's at.
Can I go back to the cemetery thing, which is the second?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's obviously, we don't have a specific timeline as yet, right? All we know is within 5 years, we're gonna,
Yeah.
and we're not precisely sure at this point, as you and I are talking, as to when that 5-year calendar started. We don't know that yet. Or do we know that? Or is there consensus?
I think there's, it was,
Just,
they had
they sent a letter.
come
with
to the
this-
board, yes, and then. Let's see,
They came to the board and said that, we are abandoning this. This
Yeah.
is no longer our responsibility.
Involved 22.
Yeah, and,
but
we
then,
were more like, how do we know that?
The
it's
statutes
abandoned?
kind of stages things in, doesn't it?
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay, so the thing that, the reason why I wanted to get this on our plate is because basically we have 2 budgets. One is the tax-based budget, I call that operations, and the other is our capital budget. If this cemetery, if we end up running this through the operations budget, essentially what we're doing is taking money out of our capacity to give raises, to do anything else, right? I mean, do you have an estimate about what kind of dollars you're gonna spend if you had to mow that thing all year?
We're not, oh,
You're not today, but at some point,
always from day one said that it'll be a private
but who would pay? Do you know what we'd be
contract.
paying? It's somewhere around 15,000, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So there's another alternative out there, and that is to run it through the capital budget. In other words, to set up an endowment, and that endowment would pay money in, and that capital budget has a lot less constraints on it than our operating budget. It's not a perfect solution, but anytime we start talking about taking more money out of our operating budget, guess whose pockets it's coming out of? I mean, ultimately, the biggest portion of our budget is salary, right? So you start saying we're gonna put 15,000 more expense into the budget. So, I'm trying to figure out, is there a way to avoid that? I think you can do it with an endowment.
Well, and then,
But we haven't
the
talked
church, I think the church said they had money.
Yeah.
They have 100,
You know,
but it's gonna take close to 400 or 500 to generate enough
well,
money.
yeah,
I'm one of those people that, has dealt with these long-term endowments things. My class, in college decided they wanted to fund a single scholarship. And, so they started to collect money, and, we got up over $1 million. We've already given out $1.6 million in scholarships, and we still got 2.2 million left. Well, it's because we've got discipline around how we manage the money, and the entity around here that has that kind of discipline is the Community Foundation. They do this pretty routinely, with our community fund and individual funds. It's got to be a pretty big organization. So I'm not sure that I have an answer, but I was wondering, Roger, whether we should assign this to a committee so that we're ahead of the curve on this thing rather than behind.
I do want to just clarify one thing. Are you saying to borrow money to make money?
Yep.
So we can't do that.
Why not?
Kelsey and I learned.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, you can take out short-term loans and then you have to like repay them
You'll
back.
have to show me constraints on that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
arbitrage. And it's
Oh, no,
like-
it's not arbitrage. I'm not arbitraging.
Are you taking out a loan in
Taking out money-
September and
taking
paying
out
it back
money
in
to create an endowment to support the cemetery. And what happens after that, there, you got some other steps that have to be taken there. This is not arbitrage.
Right, so are you talking about taking out a short-term loan and paying?
No,
it off?
no,
Okay.
that's funded.
Well, we can run it by our financial.
If we don't figure out how to take it out of the
Yeah,
capital budget, then it's gonna start, this and other things keep eating into our.
This is a
operating
huge
budget.
concern from a budget standpoint. I've voiced my concerns numerous times. I don't.
Our
know
only
if we're
prayer
gonna
now
get
is
this.
that we get no rain, right? I mean, that's our only hope at this juncture.
But even, I mean, there's so much more that goes into operating a cemetery, even besides mowing.
Oh, I understand that, but
I
that's
guess
about
the
an LS.
information I'm
Right.
collecting.
Okay, my question is, do we want to assign this to a committee? You guys have to
Are you,
decide
do
that.
you think you're at a point where?
I don't think I'm at a point where I'm ready to staff a committee on this. But I think that would be helpful at some point to have a group that's dedicated to working on this.
Okay, one other thing, I'd like us to start thinking about whether we ought to have a utility commission or not. You appointed me to the fire district board, where we bought, $200,000 worth of walkie-talkies. And we were looking at how we could fund it. And one of the funding options that came up was to, essentially take out a lease on those walkie-talkies. And then that saved us 2% over the rate we already had by doing this lease format. And the reason why the lease works is because the lender actually owns the walkie-talkies for 5 years. And they take all the depreciation. So that's how they make up the difference between that and just a pure loan. The other place where this is working is with municipal solar power. There are transactions going on all around us here where they come in, they front the money, they put the solar panels up, they take all of the revenue and all of the tax depreciation, and at the end of 5 years, you own it outright. I mean, it's that fast to pay down with these solar panels, 5 years. So I called up a friend of mine who's in this business and I said, we got some pretty big transactions going on with the utility company. Is this something you guys might be interested in doing, is helping us sell these tax credits? They came back and said, you're too small. Which basically tells you what goes on. The big boys do this all day long, you know, the big municipalities, the big utility companies. I imagine that within our utility out here, our substation, who's our partner on that?
Lion.
I bet they sold all that tax credit stuff for their half of the building. I would be very surprised if they didn't. As a municipality, we can't use this stuff. So I'd like to see us kind of get our arms around this. Is this something that we've never done it before, but I know around us, a lot of entities are doing this now. And starting with the fire district. They went and as it turned out, they made an arrangement for a different transaction. But it was put on the table in front of them, here, you wanna do walkie-talkies on one of these, and then they take the transaction. So that's my other thought here is, now, having said all these things, I think the utility commission has got, we need to have some discussion about that as to whether this makes sense for us or not. Should we have a commission? Should we do more stuff on our budget, our time frame, you know, at our village level with it? I'm not sure I have a clear answer on that, but I know there are a whole bunch of things out there that affect the financial side of the utility. Operations, we're golden, but on the finance side of it, there's stuff that we might want to talk about. So that was one I was going to suggest, that maybe you got 2-3 elections to go through, so I don't want anything on your plate until November, what is
No,
it?
I get a lot of my plate.
November 6th. But by the end of the year, we appoint a committee, you know, to start people, including Joe and a couple of other people who are familiar with this kind of stuff, and see whether this makes any sense or not. I don't think there's a great rush about it, except for the fact that we're building up on the hill, and that's one of those for sale items, because that's all personal property, that pumping station, as opposed to land. Oh, what's
Okay.
happening in silence?
I guess at the future date, we can work on looking at that, huh?
Sure, if the board wants that.
Oh, what is, let's see. Yeah, I guess we need some kind of a motion on accepting what you put together.
Sure. Are we still on goals?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what was the motion, Peggy,
Yes, it was.
to accept
Yes.
the goals as presented?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Okay. Now, personal and finance, consideration, discussion, investment policy, page 29.
Can I suggest that we put this over for another meeting? Lauren and I should not be, we should be together on this, and we are not as we sit here.
So you're gonna make a motion to table?
Yeah. Is you okay with that, Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think it needs some fine tuning.
yeah.
What we went through, personnel and finance. You made the motion, Goff,
Yeah. The table,
the table,
right? So
table to a future meeting.
next meeting,
Can,
force us to get this
So,
thing done.
Table agenda item to next meeting?
Yeah. Are you okay with that? You give us too much slack, we take it.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Peggy second.
Oh, my.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Anything else from the board?
Or is.
Hearing none, we are adjourned.
Hours that we can just ask questions of,
Mhm.
so, okay. I might send you a couple.
don't know.